Hi, my name is Julia M. Spencer. I'm a real estate advisor, investor, and your number one source for real estate advice online. Welcome here to the Red Door. Actually, a little shed in the backyard of my parents' house. I'm on vacation again this summer with my kids here in Europe, and we have a little bit of time, so I made a couple of notes as I do some sightseeing, as I always do, and make a couple of notes and questions. Also, I recently have subscribed to a couple of Facebook groups that discuss tax liens and tax sales, so I noted a couple of questions that were asked there. So I'm going to make some videos about some of that stuff this summer. But this video, we're going to talk about how to find real estate that isn't listed for sale anywhere. So basically how to find these awesome deals without asking a realtor to just give you a printout from the MLS. And this is very important because if you're going to be a real estate bargain hunter, you're going to have to learn how to find the bargains. And I kind of made a few notes for you on my little sheet, and I'm going to give you some tips with this video. So let's start right off. Number one. How do you find these amazing deals that aren't published anywhere? Number one, ask other investors at auctions. This is kind of self-explanatory, and I've mentioned this a couple of times in my other videos and my ebooks. And I basically tell you there that you need to go out into the world. You need to find the other investors that are going to the same auctions that you go, or you need to go to some of the auction just places where people just gather. It could also be an auction that you don't even bid on, for example, like a mortgage foreclosure auction where the prices of course are much higher, and just go to these places and kind of network with people, just kind of chat people up, ask them if they have maybe a real estate list, if they're working for a number of investors that have lists. So what I've usually have found is that a lot of the people at these auctions don't actually bid for themselves. They work for banks, for larger investors, for investor groups even sometimes, and they bid at these auctions on behalf of other people, which means that they usually have large portfolios that they also manage or have access to the people that manage those, and you can maybe just kind of slip your name and your email and have them put you on their distribution list and send you some of the wholesale real estate that they have on their list. This is kind of like a really easy way, very often overlooked. People don't really go to that area to find good deals. Number two, kind of leads me into number two, subscribe to investment club lists. So this could be private lists. Of course, the people that publish these lists or maintain these lists can be found at these auctions. It can be found anywhere else too. If you go to like a mastermind, a real estate mastermind, or if you go to a real estate conference, or if you have friends that maybe have other friends, and you basically just kind of spread the word and see if you can get it on as many lists as possible for the areas that you're interested in investing in, and you basically just kind of slip in wherever you can. And you would be surprised that once you start this process of always putting your name on a list, how often you will get some pretty good lists and pretty good deals sent straight to your email that aren't even published anywhere else, aren't put on Craigslist, aren't put on MLS or anywhere else where you can, the general public investor can get to them. Number three, join social media groups and ask. In the world of social media today, I mean, there's just so much access to groups and information. It's really overwhelming. I love what I do, and I typically stay up till about 1 in the morning, no matter what time zone I'm in, and I just kind of read about other people and what they're doing. And I do this on Facebook, Instagram. I go to Bigger Pockets, I think, is one of the ones that I've been to. Just there's so many groups out there. I mean, just do a Google search and see what you can find, and just ask the people in those groups. A lot of times you will have missed connections or rather, I wouldn't say like maybe misconnections, but maybe the people aren't working in the area of your interest, but kind of spread the word out there. Hey, I'm in the state of Georgia. Anybody have wholesale properties in the state of Georgia? What I found recently was really cool thing is I actually went on Linked, and I have my resume there. You can, by the way, you can check me out there. I also post some articles there sometimes and videos. And I do kind of skim some of the other real estate investing groups that are out there and people, real estate agents as well as individuals. And I was contacted by one of them in a message on Linked, not even openly, it was like a private message. And it basically said, hey, do you want to be on our list? Do you want to see our wholesale properties? I'm like, sure, it doesn't cost anything. So then I kind of lost track of this. I was put on this list, and lists started coming in, and of course I've subscribed to a lot of places, so I didn't know which lists came from. So I found this list, and it looked really good. So I sent a message back, and I said, hey, how did you even get my name? And total brain fry there, I didn't even know. And the guy said, well, there's a whole bunch of us, and we're a group, and we buy properties at really dirt cheap prices, be it at a tax sale or distressed properties. And then we scavenge out, me and my partners, we scavenge people on Linked, on Facebook, on all other social media, and we just ask people to join our distribution list, and we send out these lists. And you were put on this list. So he asked me my name, I gave him my name, and he said, okay, you were added through a linked ad. So doesn't hurt to be added. I know we all get way too much email in our email box, but in this case I think maybe it's kind of worthwhile. So subscribe to a bunch of these lists, and then just filter out the ones that you don't want, that aren't interesting to you. And that's my tip for that one. Number 4, just spread the word. If you're looking for real estate that's cheap to buy, and recently I actually met an investor out in New York City, and he's like, I can't find any deals, the numbers don't make sense. And I'm like, well, who did you ask? It turns out that all he did is ask his local realtor to give an MLS list. And I'm like, that's not enough, you need to put a little bit more fire behind it. And I said, if you're just doing it for a while, that's no problem. But if you've been doing it for a year or so, pretty much everybody should know that you're looking for real estate to buy. And that is contacting your neighbors, your friends, spreading the word on your personal social media if you have it. You go to a grocery store, you meet someone, you're like, hey, by the way, I buy real estate. Here's my number. Make sure you have your card with you all the time. Easy to find contact, of course. Don't make it like a really super complicated email that nobody can remember. The easiest, of course, is to find something catchy, that people will remember, and they can just contact you that way. Or carry your card with you all the time and just spread the word. I almost think like it's better that more people know what you're doing than less people. So let people stalk you, let people ask you questions, and let people contact you. That's the easiest way. And eventually, it's just like when I did thrift book sales, eventually people would realize that I was buying and selling books online. This is long before my real estate career. And they would approach me and say, hey, I have this collection of books. You want to pick it up for me? Give me a couple $100? And I'm like, sure, And I wasn't even asking. People were contacting me. The same goes for real estate. That's what you should be doing. Number 5, ask other investors where they get their lists from. That is so easy to do. It is really like the A to Z thing. I mean, if you don't want to do the work yourself, ask somebody else what they did and do the same thing that they did. In fact, I probably wouldn't be here today bringing this YouTube video to you if I hadn't asked my good friend Steve G. Jones how he does the marketing of his knowledge online. And he said, well, just, do what I did. And he explained it to me, and that's what I've been doing. So for the last 4 years, the reason I'm here on YouTube, you can thank Steve G. Jones for this. He is actually the one that taught me to stand in front of the camera and just talk and spread my knowledge. So in order to get lists and find out how other people are getting their lists, just ask the ones that are successfully doing it, and ask them, kindly, nicely, to share their secrets with you. A lot of times people love to teach. They're very proud of their accomplishments, and they don't mind sharing that information with you. Number 6, subscribe to government direct lists. Wow, it actually does work. So if you go to, if you're really interested in tax sale foreclosures, now you got to understand, and this is probably something where you should probably check out my ebooks, but I explain to you the different kinds of government auctions that exist out there. You have the city auctions, the county auctions, but believe it or not, there's other government agencies that have auctions for seized property. And I'm going to get to I'm going to talk about one here in my next step. But make sure you subscribe to as many different government distribution lists as possible for any kind of sale. There's websites for governmentbid.gov or something like that. Just make sure it's not like a private site unless they're hired by the government to do the sale. But auction websites for government property, basically. And you can buy anything. You can actually buy cars, you can buy real estate that way. You can buy, seized assets, whatever kind. And I have actually personally bought a GMC work truck one time through a government auction. It was an excellent vehicle. Paid like $800 or $900 for it, and it was one of those big flatbeds, extended bed trucks, and I was chugging around the area with that for a while. It cost me a couple $100, couple $100 more to buy some brakes because I had to make it safe. But other than that, it wasn't much to the vehicle. It was a great working vehicle, and I was able to find that right there in Atlanta. And the same goes for real estate. I mean, anything and everything the government seizes or takes, or people don't pay their taxes on it, you can buy it from government places. And if you don't know exactly how to find this information, just do a Google search. Ask people like myself, and just subscribe to as many lists as you can. Eventually you're going to start getting these lists into your inbox, and these are going to be properties that are not advertised to the general public, unless, of course, the general public is looking in those places. And a lot of people don't even know where to look. So I'm teaching you right now, this is where you need to look. Alright, let's talk about this government sale, this very specific one I want to mention to you. So there's something like a U.S. Marshal Sale, and this has nothing to do with taxes at all, but it is basically property that has been seized by the U.S. Marshal's Office, Department of Justice. U.S. Marshals work for the Department of Justice, and property has been seized because some crime has been committed with it, or has been committed in it, in terms of real estate, of course. And you can find anything and everything. You can find collectibles, you can find cars, of course, airplanes, boats, and of course real estate and land. And I think I read something that there's like 9,400 U.S. Marshals that are operating in the United States, all over all the districts. And you would be able to have one in your area, and it is their responsibility to basically dispose of assets that have been seized because they were used during the committing of a crime of some sort, or whatever other reason, I don't know. It's not really shared on the website. But there's a couple companies that specialize in selling those assets. So just do U.S. Marshal government seized sale search on Google and see what you can find. You might find something in your area that's pretty cool. And I think I just looked recently, earlier today, I found an airplane, and maybe some of you may know, but maybe you don't know, but my son is learning how to be a pilot, so I'll be watching those sales very closely to see that maybe we can get him an airplane. Why not? Anyways, number 8. Here's a really big thing, is a lot of banks, mortgage companies specifically, that are giving out loans for real estate actually also have REO lists, real estate owned lists. These are properties that are kind of in the process of after foreclosure, but before being listed with a real estate agent. That means they're kind of like in this process where the bank's like, okay, if we have too much, okay, let's list a whole bunch of them with an agent. But in the meantime, they're just sitting on these lists. It's basically real estate that's owned by the bank. Now, bank's business is not real estate. Bank's business is to loan money and make interest and things like that. and on their different financial products. So real estate isn't really their thing. So if you can get the person that holds this list, that maintains these lists for any particular bank, you can be a local community bank, it could be a credit union, it could be an actual large mortgage lender. You just get on the list. A lot of times you can find this information also online. So I challenge you, go to a website such as maybe like Wells Fargo or something, and see if you can find a real estate owned list. REO List is what it's called. Just do a search, see if you can find something. Maybe you're lucky. And by the way, this is also explained in my ebooks in great detail. With these real estate owned properties that are on these lists by the banks, a lot of times banks will accept short sales, and I explain in my ebooks what a short sale is, so you can snatch an even better deal in those cases. Number 9, ask for other institutional investors to basically ask for their REO list. Now, I'm not talking about banks, I'm talking about companies. Banks themselves actually go to some of these tax sales and buy these properties in order to obtain the interest. So a lot of institutional investors go to tax sales to purchase specifically liens because they have an interest rate associated with them, and they go to these sales and basically buy these properties, not to ever get the property, but they basically want somebody to come before the end of the redemption period and purchase those properties back. And the institutional investor then makes quite a good interest, especially in the states where there is a penalty from day one, such as in the state where I live, where it's 20%. So those kinds of institutional investors are kind of hard to find in my experience. Again, the best way is to go to a tax sale and see who shows up, get their contact info, ask them who they work for, and see if they have something to sell. That's my best recommendation. And last but not least, find offbeat ads such as eBay, Craigslist, your local newspaper, even if you're still into reading paper newspapers, and find a property that you like, or maybe two, and see who is the seller, who is the person that's offering this. If it's an individual and it's not a real estate agent, you might very well be able to call them and ask them if they have a list that they can give you, and if they don't have one immediately available, ask them to be put on their distribution list so you can get their sales before they even publish them on the paper. You would be very surprised that there's a lot of old school real estate investors that aren't really savvy with the internet these days. So their way and their method of renting out properties or finding buyers or sellers is basically just put an ad in the paper, the printed thing. Believe it or not, people still do that. So these people will go to a realtor or they will put an ad in the paper. So how can you find them online? You can't. So buy a paper, buy your local paper, find some properties that you like, note down the numbers and start calling. And eventually you'll connect with a couple of people in the area. They'll put you together with maybe some other people. And this is how you get to basically get your step into that door, maybe in your area that you really have been looking and waiting for to get the really good properties. So I hope these 10 steps were useful. I'm sorry this video is so extremely long. Make sure you subscribe at my website. It's at the bottom of this video, juliamspencer.com. You'll get a free guide to real estate investing there if you subscribe, and also I'll periodically send some information out as well. And I hope to see you investing very successfully very soon. And have a great day, everybody.
For your free guide to real estate investing, visit juliamspencer.com.